welcome to a Vox Markets webinar this evening. Tonight we have Alba Mineral Resources, and joining us will be Executive Chairman George Frangeskides, who will be taking us firstly through the company's current presentation and then answering some questions at the end. If you have a question that you'd like to submit, please do so in the comment box on the right. So now I'll hand you over to George and we'll see you at the end for some questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. I'm George Frangeskides, Executive Chairman of Alba Mineral Resources. This is an abridged version of our latest corporate presentations. So our disclaimer. So I'll give you a few seconds on the screen. Our board and management. I've been at Alba for about 6 years, since about 2014, 6-7 years. We've got a significantly experienced board. We've bolstered that board in recent times by the addition of 2 new non-executive directors, Elizabeth Henson and Lars Brunner. Mark Austin heads up our geology side. He's our COO and senior geologist. And as I say, we've got a huge amount of experience to draw upon. Our snapshot, if you like, we're a diverse group. We've got mining assets and oil and gas investments. We only operate in low-risk, resources-friendly jurisdictions. We've got huge production potential with high-grade gold, high-grade ilmenite, high-grade graphite, and other high-value metals in the jurisdictions in which we operate. Our share price is, well, stated there to have been 0.35 when this was written, 0.35 of a pence, market cap around 22 million quid. And that has significantly risen in recent times. Our operations are in Greenland, that very large country mass that you can see there, northwest Greenland. We've got a cluster of 3 projects, which we'll come to later in the presentation. Southern Greenland, our Spherical Graphite project, which we've just released news on. And in the UK and Ireland, we've got oil and gas investments in Surrey, got gold assets in North Wales, and we've got a zinc-lead prospect in Ireland. We turn to our UK gold assets first. Clogau St David's has been our focus really for the last 12 months because we've not been able to get into Greenland to do any work in earnest. So Clogau St David's is the UK's largest historic producer of gold. Our focus there is to find new zones that have not been exploited. We've also got under license to Alba the entire Dolgellau gold field, which runs to 30-odd kilometres there in North Wales. And we have already done a significant regional exploration programme there and discovered 10 new gold targets. And there's more work to be done on the gold field. And we recently picked up the rights to the Gwynfinish gold mine, which is the UK's second largest historic producer of gold. So we are uniquely set over a known geological gold belt in the United Kingdom. That's where we are. The blue areas are Clogau, our Clogau licence areas. The green area in the middle is Gwynfinish. We're very well located there, of course, in the UK. How could you not be? With roads, ports, and other infrastructure all within easy reach. You can see here why gold is riding all-time high prices at the minute. Late last year, it touched more than $2,000 an ounce. It's still at more than $1,800 an ounce, and those are record prices over time. And you can see at the bottom left there that when the Clogau mine actually shut for production in 1998, price of gold was only $300 an ounce. So we're at multiple highs now, and that really helps to bolster our economic case for reopening the mine at Clogau. The Clogau snapshot, we've covered a lot of this already. We've got 80,000 ounces recorded in history. It's a complex geological setting, and but we understand how that works. We know what we're looking for. It's a complex interplay between Clogau shales, shear zones and greenstones. and they form a gold-bearing quartz vein system, and that's what we look for in our drilling and our bulk sampling. High grade, in history it's been very high grade, pockets of running between tens to hundreds of ounces of gold per tonne, and never really been subjected to proper modern mining methods or concerted exploration, and that's what we've been doing. So we've underground drilled and bulk sampled, found what we think is a 550 metre extension to the main lode. We've drilled at surface, significant drilling at surface, and that's still ongoing. And there we've found a 66 metre vein system below the existing workings, what we think to be a projected vein system. That's a section of the underground workings at Clogau, several levels, huge amount of development, would cost millions to replicate today. Luckily, we don't have to do that. So we take the benefit of all of that historic work in looking now for the extensions to those previously worked zones. The Phase 1 underground drilling programme, which was carried out in September, October of last year. We drilled 7 holes, 559 metres. That's no mean feat because drilling underground is pretty tricky. It's a very constrained environment, but we now already know what we're doing underground, as you'd expect. And actually the holes were all successful. They all intersected quartz veins. So they all verified and followed our geological model, our 3D model that we've developed over the last 3-4 years at Clogau. As I say, we've projected a 550 metre extension to the main lode. The main lode is where most historic mining and production took place. So it's a potentially very significant find, which we'll be following up on this year. We drilled from surface from late last year, and we're still drilling from surface now. We have intersected what we think to be, again, a projection of the existing lode or vein structure below the deepest level at Lechfraith, number 4 level. And we've now projected that 66 metres down, as you can see there, with the 2 drill traces from LL3 and 5. That we're intersecting what we believe to be a lode structure very deep, about 66 metres down. The idea then would be to access that lode structure from number 4 level once we've dewatered it. And then, of course, if we can sample that and get good grades out of some of that lode structure, the idea would be then to sink that existing shaft a further 60 odd metres down and install some levels across so that we can access the lode structure directly. Our surface drilling, as I've touched on, which is going to start, our Phase 2 surface drilling will start just pretty much straight after our Phase 1 drilling finishes, and we're doing the last hole on that programme as we speak. This will be targeting, in particular, the 550 metre extension underground to the main lode, but also looking at intersecting other projected depth extensions of other historically worked zones, in particular the Grandfathers and the 710 lode. One of the good things about Clogau is that it's simple processing. We've bought and installed a 1.5 tonne per hour pilot gold processing plant on site. The gold it really can be accessed and produced with very simple processing. You crush it, the ore, pass it through the gravity concentrator and a shaking table. We've already validated the processing circuit at a third-party laboratory and produced a gold concentrate with good recoveries, and that gives us confidence that our process, our circuit, is amenable to this type of ore, which is important as we go forward and look to process tens, if not hundreds of tons of material through that plant. Chlorite should be remembered has another benefit to the gold. It's quite unique. It fetches a premium over normal gold rates, or at least it has done historically, and we expect that to continue because there's no current production. we would be the only producers of clog-eye gold, and we'd, to a very large extent, control the market. It's also been the gold of choice for the British royal family for about 100 years. And we would look to exploit the gold in a couple of ways in particular. One is with high-end luxury jewellery, with a luxury international brand perhaps as our partners, and producing gold coins and bars for investment purposes. That's our timeline to production. The first 12 months is really this year. And what we'd be looking to do is a continuation of our work from last year, really, our phase 2 underground drilling and sampling, and processing the bulk samples that we obtain, both those that we've got already and the ones that we will be collecting this year, dewatering that main shaft at Leg Frith so we can access it directly, and pitting and sampling the waste tip up at Tinny Cornell, which we think also has great prospects for finding gold in the spoil tip there. That's all subject to obviously approvals in the normal way. And in the 12 to 24 month period is when we would hope, having built on the work from this year, that we'd then be looking to the work that's needed to open the mine for full-scale operation and production. And that will involve a proper pre-feasibility study, most likely. Obviously, a submission of a full planning application. The mine's been permitted before, had planning before. We would need to reopen it and restart the planning process. We'd look for offtake agreements for the gold. We'd upgrade our processing facilities. Obviously, we'd need a slightly bigger processing potential, and then we'd start commercial production. I've touched on the Dolgellau Gold Exploration Project. That's the work we're doing over the regional ground. You can see there we've already identified 10 gold targets there. There's more to be done over the regional exploration piece. We've already trenched one of those targets and uncovered a quartz vein 2.1 meters wide, which validates the work we're doing there over the regional piece. We'll be doing more of that this year. I've also mentioned Gwynfinish. That's really the subject could be the subject of a separate presentation, but in short, it's the second largest producer, recorded about 45,000 ounces over time, historical grades of 15 grams per tonne, and stopped operation in late 1990s, again, the gold price being only $300 an ounce. Limerick, we've just recently renewed our Limerick base metals license till running now till May 2022. It's in a world-class zinc-lead ore field. There's some very big zinc projects there: Tara, Palace Green, Lachine, Galmoy, with some very significant operators. And there's been a lot of exploration drilling, and very successful exploration drilling by our neighbours in the last year to 2 years. And we've had an expert consultant who really knows Limerick reinterpret look at our information on our data. Those are our targets that we previously delineated. And what we think is that we need to trace the Cooner Castle fault really to within tens of meters on surface. And that's going to then help us to identify and pinpoint our future drilling. So that's the work that's ongoing currently at Limerick. Right, if I move on to Greenland, and again, this could be a presentation in itself, but in short, as I've touched on at the beginning, we've got some high-value minerals. We've got JORC resources at Thule Black Sands and Melville Bay. We've got high-grade projects at Thule and Amitsok, and we're in a country which is committed to resource extraction with some big deposits and an established mining economy. Commodities that we're looking for, or that we know that we've got in Greenland, are graphite at Amitsok, which will come to the demand growth there in lithium-ion batteries. Iron ore at Melville Bay, of course, iron ore being used for steel production. And ilmenite at Thule Black Sands, where titanium dioxide is produced, from ilmenite, and it's the principal feedstock for pigment production in paints, coatings, plastics. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, as you'd imagine, and it's also, of course, a source of titanium metal. This is Thule Black Sands up in northwest Greenland. We're in blue. Neighbours Blue Jay are in brown. We've got very similar mineralization across that coastline. Our ilmenite, ranges from 45 to 47% titanium dioxide, very low contaminant levels. We drilled it extensively in 2018 across 10 kilometers of mineralized strike length. We got a decent resource at 19 million tons at 43.6% total heavy minerals. And our in situ ilmenite grade of 8.9% is amongst the highest that there is. We've got contained ilmenite from that of about 1.7 million tons. And even that, after one season of drilling, would give us a life of mine of more than 12 years for 1.5 million tons per annum operation. But we intend to drill more. The plan is to drill this year. Extension drilling. You can see there a zone in yellow that is not currently part of the resource. That's one target for extension drilling. We'd also look to drill deeper beneath the permafrost, and that way increase our resource tons. Touching on Amitsoq now, which is in southern Greenland. That's our license area there, and that's actually a picture of a channel sample of some graphite. It's very high grade graphite. In fact, possibly the world's highest average grades. Amitsoq's got 28% plus. Kalak, which is our new discovery, we made that discovery of an entirely separate graphite deposit on the mainland portion of our license, running at about 25+% graphite. Amitsoq was operated as a mine until the 1920s, so it's a very useful bit of information that we know there was a mine there before and production previously, so we're building on a brownfield site essentially. We've traced those graphite beds over about 1 kilometre at Amitsoq and 0.5 kilometre at Kalak, and we are, we've done a huge amount of work: airborne geophysics, ground geophysics, structural geology, obviously mapping and sampling. There's our graphite project there in a bar chart. We're at the end there in red. Our average grades are higher than anyone else's that we know of. We just announced some very good and very successful test work by Pro Graphite, who are graphite experts in Germany, produced a saleable concentrate of over 97% fixed carbon, which is very high carbon content. They think we'll be able to get to 98% by flotation alone for some fractions, which would be a significant advantage because we wouldn't need purification to get to that important 98% level. What we are seeing as a potential sale route for Amitsoq graphite then is that we would screen our concentrate that we produce at 150 microns. We'd sell those flakes of 150 plus micron size separately because they command a higher price. And then we use the remaining material, which is about 85% of the concentrate, for spherical graphite production because it's looking like a typical, what we call a -195 grade product. And that is what you use in lithium-ion batteries. Spherical graphite, very important that we can produce spherical graphite, and that's what we're looking to do because it commands a significant premium over flake graphite prices. Even with the softening in prices last year, in July of last year, flake graphite was over $2,000 a ton, which is, a significant premium. Why graphite? It's a massive growth sector because of the demand coming from electric vehicles. Lithium-ion batteries, of course, a key component in an electric vehicle. And graphite demand, benchmark mineral intelligence, is expected to rise from 200,000 tons per annum currently to nearly 3 million tons per annum by 2030. That's a massive, massive expansion of demand. Graphite's a critical component of lithium-ion battery, and it might surprise you to look at that bar chart and see that the grey, for the different types of lithium battery there are 4 types. The grey is the graphite by weight, and the blue is the lithium by weight. So why they're called lithium batteries is anybody's guess, really. Graphite is clearly a very important component in that battery. On the right there is the beds that we've modelled, and that's what we intend to drill this summer. Touching on Melville Bay briefly, other operators have done a huge amount of work at a huge expense to drill a resource there, 67 million tonnes at 31% Fe or iron. Those are our licence areas, our 3 sub-areas there in northwest Greenland. As I say, we're building on that work that others have done. And the important thing to remember is the grade is obviously, it's a magnetite resource, but it can beneficiate up to 70% Fe. They've proven that in past test work. The other important thing to remember is that it's on the same geological belt, the committee belt there in green, as the Mary River iron ore project in northern Canada. That's a very significant high-grade DSO direct shipping ore deposit that's in production and sending 3 to 4 million tonnes per annum to markets in Europe and the Far East. And we're on the continuation of that geological belt there across the Baffin Bay at Melville Bay. And that's just a snapshot of Mary River there. That's some ship loading going on at the Mill Inlet port. And that's the mine itself, top right. And you'll see there, top left, a geological comparison of the stratigraphy of Melville Bay and Mary River, where there is a significant degree of correlation. That's the target. That's what we're hoping to find at Melville Bay, is that direct shipping ore material that is obviously commands a high price and needs minimal processing. Iron ore is very interesting at the moment. We seem to be in some very good commodities at the minute that are riding high. The price of iron ore is now 50% higher than it was when that resource was drilled at Melville Bay. And that price recovery has been ongoing since about 2015. We've also got an exploration project in northwest Greenland called Inglefield. And that's the particular target there. It's called the Four Finger target. It's an iron ore copper gold IOCG style deposit that we're looking for there. And we've already done a field season there, and we intend to do some follow-up work on that deposit also. Greenland value drivers are going to be driven by drilling at Amitsoq, further drilling at Thule Black Sands, moving our projects into that economic assessment phase and pre-feasibility phase, looking for off-take partners and firming up on our IOCG potential at Inglefield. That's a brief whiz through our projects, our mining projects at Alba. We haven't touched on the oil and gas investments, but as you can see, there's a lot ongoing, and there's a lot of very, very high value and high quality assets that we're looking to move forward this year. Thank you very much for your time.
That's great. Welcome, George. Thank you for a great and thorough presentation. You've certainly covered a lot there. We've had a great response and lots of questions from the community, and I'd just like to add that we will try to get as many questions as we can covered. But perhaps just to start, if we can focus on this gold concentrate that you touched on in relation to Clogau. You've mentioned that you've been able to produce 20.7 grams per tonne of gold concentrate along with good recoveries. Could you elaborate on this at all?
Yeah, absolutely, Fran. So just to understand the process that we're engaged with in Clogau, our processing plant, its goal is to produce a concentrate, right? It's a gold concentrate. If I can give you an example, I don't know how well this is going to come through, but I'm going to give it a go. It's a bit like Blue Peter for those of you who are old enough. This here is a gold concentrate from a previous period of mining that I've somehow got my hands on, right? So now you can see perhaps, I don't know, Fran, can you see that at all?
Yes.
Or not really? You can? Okay, so if I take my gold concentrate and I pour it onto a white piece of paper, right? And I move my camera down, and let's see if this is going to work. Can you now see it?
Yeah.
Right. So you can see that there's gold in there.
Yes.
But you can also see there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there that's darker than gold, right?
Mm.
Now, that is a typical gold concentrate. So that's what we'd be producing at Clogau initially. It is basically the process that we're engaged in. So we crush the material, we then put it through a concentrator. We then put that, that preliminary intermediate concentrate, if you like, over a Wilfley table, which is a shaking table, as it sounds. And what that does is separates the heavy material, the heavy minerals, from the gangue or the waste material. And then we end up with this, right? But that's got in it not just gold, but it's got other heavy minerals in it as well. So it's got galena, it's got pyrite, it's got some iron even. So that is a potentially a saleable product. You'd sell it to a smelter or a refinery. But obviously what you want to do next after that is you want to get to smelt the material. Once you've smelted it and you've burnt off all of those heavy minerals that are not gold, then you can get to about an 85–90% pure product from smelting. To go to the next step, you need a refinery. It's possible that we will smelt it. It is unlikely that we will be engaged in refining. That's a very specialist thing. We'd likely send that to a refinery, and they would then refine the gold, so it ends up being something like 99.99% pure. So there have been quite a few questions about the concentrate. Really, what we were just trying to show is that we have got a process here that works. It produces gold concentrate. That is the key here. The fact that we've got a 36-ton bulk sample that we're going to process, and we do hope it's going to recover decent amounts of gold in it. But, you know, I don't want people to lose focus here, because we haven't. The big picture here is, let's find a zone or more than one zone within the mine have a significant gold that's never been exploited before. It's those zones that we're really looking for, and they're going to make this mine profitable. You know, the work we've done last year in terms of bulk sampling those exposed areas that had previously been worked, that is absolutely valid, and that is the right thing to do. And you've got to do that as part of your exploration mode. We tick that off. We've done that. We're going to sample that material. But 36 tons is a drop in the ocean, right? So the big picture here is get into those zones, and I'll talk about those, I'm sure, with some of the supplementary questions about clog eye. We get into some of those zones. We define them. We refine them. We work out where the right structures are, and then we bulk sample those zones. And we're talking about hundreds of tons of material, not just 36 tons off the surface of some zones which have been previously worked. So it may be our own fault that maybe that people have got the wrong idea, but really it's not our focus. Our focus on this 36-ton sample is to make sure the process works, that the circuit works. We've shown it works. When we've finished processing the 36 tons, we will announce the results. But, you know, even if it's a fantastic result, that's good, but it's not the big picture here. The big picture, as I say, is let's get into some of these unworked zones and pull out the material from there. So I hope that gives you a bit of a better context of what we're trying to do here. You know, it would be a nice win to get good grades out of that 36-ton bulk sample, but it is by no means the be all and end all here. We've got much bigger fish to fry.
Thank you for the demonstration. And
you're
just
welcome.
Looking at the bigger picture by focusing on clog eye a bit more widely, what are going to be some of the main focuses at the site for the company, and within that, which ones are you most excited about this year?
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so that gives me a good chance to sort of move on from what I was saying there, which is that there are some zones that we've already found that are really exciting in our drilling so far. So the drilling we did underground last year in October, that seems to have intersected an extension to the main lode. Now, the main lode is where most of the mining production has happened at Clog Eye over the years. Now, if we found a 550-meter extension to that main lode, then that is big news. Now, we think we've identified an extension. We've hit it at least in three separate intersections in our underground drilling. but obviously we want to go back in now and infill. Now, the first opportunity to infill that zone of 550 meters will be actually from surface. We can actually hit it very well from surface, as we've shown with our surface drilling that we're doing now. So what I'm excited about, first of all, is let's finish this phase of drilling, which I'll come to, which has been very successful. Let's move straight into phase 2 if we can, subject to getting our permits through in time, which we're working on. And that phase 2 will then target some of those, will target that extension, that 550 meter extension at various different places to infill the story and hopefully hit that quartz vein all along that trajectory. And that then is a big target for us. We then go back in and we bulk sample along that strike. And that's going to be, that's really exciting for us. So that's the first goal. The second one is what we're doing right now. So the phase 1 surface drilling is targeting the area beneath number 4 level at Lechfraith. Right, we've hit, I think, 5 or 6 holes there. We've intersected now what we think again is a projected lode or vein structure that is extending about 66 meters below the existing the deepest number 4 level at Lechfraith. I've shown you in the presentation how we're modeling that. It's a big unit. What we need to do, of course, is prove it up. We need to do more drilling to target that zone. What we are also going to do with that zone is dewater the Lechfraith shaft. Now that will only take us, and I think we're going to touch on Lechfraith, the dewatering, because we had a few questions about that, but the dewatering will allow us to get into the number 4 level. And that's where visible gold was seen in the 1980s, but that area has been flooded for, as far as we know, decades. So we want to get into number 4 level as soon as that's dewatered and do some channel sampling from there, maybe some bulk sampling. Let's see what we find when we get in there. And then we can then start to target the zones below number 4, having access to that, to the start essentially of that zone that we've defined or we're trying to define by this drilling. So I'd say those 2 targets, the 550 meter extension to the main lode that we're projecting and the 66 meters below Lechfraith, you know, they're big juicy targets. We want to hit them with several more drill holes and obviously then go in and bulk sample to prove up, you know, hopefully some good grade in there. You know, we just, you know, that's the beauty of this thing. It's exploration. You know, you've got to come with us on this ride. It is, you know, it's a risk reward business. We're in the business of finding extensions to, you know, a known gold deposit. No one has ever done this work that we're doing, that we're throwing at this technical work. Yes, plenty of money going into it as well. We are, you know, we are confident that there are unworked veins and vein systems in the Clogau, footprint, if you like, of the mine. So those 2 targets, I think I'd put them at number 1 and 2.
Great, thank you for touching on that. And yes, if we can just go to this lower Lechfraith levels, which, just for context, are where visible gold was last seen before it was flooded and closed in 1988. Can you talk about how the dewatering plan is progressing and what new targets you hope will make it accessible?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on some of that, but the dewatering process is that we apply for a water discharge permit. We've applied for that. It is it's difficult to tell you exactly how long that would take. I'm guessing a month or 2, but don't hold me to that. Obviously, as soon as we have news on that, we will release it via RNS. Once we have the discharge permit, we really move straight into the dewatering scheme, and it's a very simple scheme, and I think we touched on it in a previous RNS. So you know, it is as I say, fairly simple process for getting the water out. The treatment we are hoping to be pretty minimal in terms of using a sort of silt buster that's going to essentially allow the sediment in the water to settle, and that will be, I don't know, a 1 or 2 month process to dewater. What we're trying to do is dewater to the levels, actually levels 2, 3, and 4 at Lechfraith. So it's a significant body of water, if you like, but it isn't going to take I don't think more than a couple of months. Then we'll carry on, of course, working the pumps, because we'll need to keep those levels constant so that we can get in and keep working without the levels rising again, obviously. So it'll be a constant process of maintenance, but it isn't, it's not technically very difficult. It is just, of course, having the necessary permits in place so that Natural Resources Wales is happy with what we're proposing to do, and that's an absolute given.
That's great. And investors can expect an announcement informing them when this is likely to be completed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, great. Now, I have 3 questions now that are probably best covered in one answer, but feel free to sort of answer them however suits you best. So I'm talking about Greenland. So first of all, when do you think is a reasonable timeline for restarting activities in Greenland? Then, of course, will current COVID restrictions prevent any objectives at Greenland from being realized this year, do you think? And then finally, do you intend to use any Greenland-based drilling and or exploration contractors within this process? So as you please, answer.
ABC. Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. Well, Greenland is under lockdown essentially currently. You're welcome to all go on the government guidance, as I do every few days, just to see on their website what the situation is. It is very restrictive at the minute as to who can get into Greenland and who can't. Greenland essentially is covered by the same rules as Denmark. So when Denmark starts to open up, so Greenland will open up. Does that mean we've got a problem with doing work there this year? We're hopeful that that's not going to be the case. We are hopeful that the vaccines that everyone is now implementing around the world are going to take effect, and that we're going to see an opening up, a gradual opening up. I think that the sort of backstop, if you like, our fallback position is that, and you've touched on this in one of your questions, we see a way to doing our work, executing our work programs in Greenland this year using largely Danish and Greenlandic personnel. Now, that's not unusual. We've used Danish and Greenlandic personnel on several of our work programs to date. So, we know the right people. We know all the people that we want. We can definitely man our projects using local personnel to a large extent. It wouldn't be ideal. We would definitely like to get our UK geologists, our in-house geologists, out to the field to manage those programs. But there are workarounds. I suppose the difficulty might be the drilling side of things, and that's really what we want to get into, is drilling Amitsoq and drilling Thule Black Sands a second time. And there you need specialist drillers. Now, we are definitely doing some work to investigate if we can source some of that from in country, and it is entirely possible that we'll be successful in that. But it's a bit of sort of work in progress. But we're confident that things will open up and we'll be able to execute plans. Other operators are in exactly the same position. They are all also hopeful and probably expectant that things will open up sufficiently to allow work to go on. So we're not really in the position at the moment to do small scale stuff. We could send in some local geologists to site and take a few samples, but we're not there with these projects. These projects need, serious work, and they deserve and merit serious work, serious drilling programs to push them forward. So we're not in that phase of sort of just sending a few people into site. We're way past that. Amitsoq and Thule Black Sands are pretty advanced projects. We know a lot about them. We need to get the tons up, both at Thule Black Sands, and prove the tons at Amitsoq. So that's going to be drilling. So that's a bit long-winded answer. We're hopeful. We think we could probably do a lot of work with Danish and Greenlandic people alone, but we hope we won't have to do that.
Great. And if operations are to be fully developed, would you say that they are going to be producing 12 months of the year, or would you say that's more seasonal?
I'd say that if you look at the Blue Jay blueprint, if I can say that, up in northwest Greenland. We would look to certainly be collecting our material most of the year, or part of the year, sorry, and then we'd be processing it most of the year. There will definitely be some downtime in northwest Greenland just because of the nature of where we are. But we can see a way to be processing material for most of the year, and then using the shipping window, which is typically July to September, using that shipping window to its fullest extent to be shipping out our processed material, obviously to the customers. So the shipping window is definitely always going to be a fairly narrow one. But there are other very big operations up in northern Greenland and in northern Canada, which we might even have time to touch on, where they make a very profitable operation out of that very narrow 3 to 4 month shipping window. So processing, mining, maybe a few in the sort of summer months ideally, processing most of the year, and then shipping in the summer months as well.
That's great.
Now, sorry, Amitsoq is different. Amitsoq is in southern Greenland, but Greenland is the biggest island in the world. I think Australia doesn't count in this context, or it's the first or the second largest. It is massive. So Amitsoq in the southern tip of Greenland, completely different story. It's ice-free all year round. There's a much bigger window there for mining and processing if we are going to process on site, and shipping as well. So Amitsoq a different story. So there's a lot more leeway there.
That's great. And we'll touch on Amitsoq in just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the Thule Black Sands. If we can just focus on this site a bit more closely now. As it stands, the resource here is currently 1.7 million tons of ilmenite. What is the potential for increasing the resource here?
Well, there's significant potential. We deliberately took lightweight rigs to site, 2 lightweight rigs to site in 2018 in order to get around our license area quickly and efficiently. And we were able to do that. And we drilled and proved up 10 kilometers of mineralized strike length, which is, a huge endeavor in a space of one field season in northwest Greenland near the Arctic Circle. So that was a phenomenal job. It was only possible because of those lightweight rigs. The downside of the lightweight rigs, they didn't have the grunt to get through the permafrost. Now, they might have got through the permafrost, but we weren't going to know. And it turns out permafrost is bloody hard stuff. So our drilling and our mineral resource is basically constrained currently by the depth of the permafrost. And that is only, a meter or so down typically. So, excuse me if you can hear a dog barking, that's my dog, probably hearing me talking and wondering what's going on. Mm-hmm. So what we now want to do is go back in with a sonic rig, and that sonic rig can definitely get through the permafrost. We will then clearly from that exercise of hitting some deeper holes through the permafrost, we should be able to increase our resource substantially. Apart from the deeper drilling, we can also do some extension drilling. There's some areas that I think I pointed out in the presentation. There's one in that presentation, the Zone 200, where again, the rigs that we had weren't really capable of getting in there due to the ground conditions. The sonic rig shouldn't have any problems in that regard. It's a lot bigger piece of kit. And so we'd extend to drill there as well. And that should also give us more tonnage. We're not only looking for increasing tons, by the way, we're looking to move our tons from the inferred category to indicated, so that there's a greater level of certainty as to the number of tons that we've got there. So all in all, there's definitely really good prospects for a significant increase in our resource.
That's great. Now just going back to Amitsoq, can you talk a bit about the long-term plans here as well as timescales for the site?
Amitsoq, so we've done a huge amount of test work at Amitsoq, and it is, it's pretty advanced in that regard. And we've just announced some really good news today, which I'm sure viewers have seen or mostly seen, which has shown that, our graphite is looking really promising and suitable for the lithium-ion battery space. So that's really important, because the big growth area for graphite is in lithium-ion batteries. There's more graphite by far than there is lithium in a lithium-ion battery, as I've shown in that presentation. And by volume, it's the biggest volume of material by far in a lithium-ion battery. So graphite's really important, but not any kind of graphite. It's only flake graphite, and it's only flake graphite that has got the inherent characteristics that will allow it to be purified to a very high degree and to remove all the unpure and unwanted elements, and also just has other characteristics that we've laid out in that RNS of today. And we're looking like we've got a lot of those fundamentals in place. We still have to do another round of test work there to get there, to do the purification exercise to make sure that we can get to 99.95% pure graphite, which is what we need. But so far, Pro Graphite, who really know what they're doing, they know graphite, that's all they do. They are telling us things are looking good. We do that next round of test work and see if that then adds to the level of confidence. It's really important with graphite that we do all of that work first, that we understand what we've got and what products we can produce and what markets that opens up for us. It's looking like our graphite's more suited to the lithium-ion space, electric vehicle sector, which is great. It may not be as suited to refractories or brake linings or retardants, which are other uses for graphite. But that's fine. As one market maybe narrows, the other market opens up, and that's the big growth market we want to be in, lithium-ion batteries. So in short, all of that work we've done over several years. Don't forget, we did airborne geophysics. We did ground geophysics, we did structural geology, we did mapping, obviously sampling. We've done several field seasons in Amitsoq. The one thing we haven't done yet, because we wanted to get our ducks in a row on the mineralogy and on the processing side of things, and to see the potential there from the structural geology that we've done, we haven't yet drilled. But we know it's got potential. We know there's a lot of graphite there from all that work we've done. We also know it was a mine 100 years ago, right? Like Clogau, it was a mine. So it can be a mine again. Where's the best place to find a new mine? Next to an old mine, as they say. So, Amitsoq's massive potential, but we obviously need to prove up the tons that we've got there. So that's the next stage. Prove up the tons, then we move into the development phase. We start doing the environmental baseline studies. You need a couple of years of that. To move into an EIA, environmental impact assessment, apply for a mining license. That's the goal. And the window, it's fairly open, because the demand forecasts for graphite are really, really strong in the next 10 years. So it's definitely something we're going to push forward at pace from here.
And would you say attaining a JORC resource for Amitsoq is a goal for 2021?
Absolutely. COVID permitting, it is absolutely the goal of the drilling program that we're designing at present. So, yes, in short, for once, and a short answer, yes.
That's great. Now, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little on both the resources of and plans for both Melville Bay and Greenland, as well as Limerick and Ireland.
Sure. Well, Melville Bay we touched on because, I think I touched on in the presentation. The interest of Melville Bay has always been that it's on this committee belt, and on that committee belt, which is geological formation up there in northern Greenland and northern Canada, is another very big iron ore deposit called Mary River. It's several deposits, in fact, I think 9, and they're only mining one at the present, the number 1 deposit to start with. They're producing about 3-4 million tons per annum, which they are sending to markets in Europe and Japan in particular. It's high-grade DSO, direct shipping ore material, which is beautiful iron ore. If you like iron ore, it's the best stuff. It just needs simple crushing, putting on a ship and sending to markets. There's no processing involved. Now, the conjecture was always that committee belt follows into Melville Bay, across the Baffin Bay, into our ground. And certainly with the drilling that's previously been done and the sampling, they have found high-grade material. But in the drilling that they did the last time it was drilled, and the resource that was defined, it was a magnetite resource. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of magnetite projects in the world that are producing. What that means is we've got a magnetite resource of 67 million tons at 31% Fe. What you have to do with magnetite is beneficiate it. You have to process it to get it up to a 70% grade product, which is what they've already shown can be done with Melville Bay iron, the magnetite iron. So we know all of that works, and we've got a good resource there. I think if we wanted to build a mine there, we'd need a lot more tons from a magnetite perspective. So we'd want to be getting our tonnage up from 67 to 150, maybe around that mark, to have a good chance of developing an economic case for mining. But really the big goal here is still there, and that is the DSO potential. One of the drill holes hit DSO. It hit a very high grade zone. And a lot of the the grab samples also hit, found high grade zones. So there is definitely still potential for drilling and getting that DSO style deposit at Melville Bay. But, we can't do everything, right? So our focus at the moment in Greenland is Amitsoq and Thule, because we know that we can push those forward economically at pace. We know what we're doing. And Melville Bay, might have to wait for another day, but it's definitely got potential. With iron ore prices, at current levels, 50% higher than they were when it was drilled last, that does certainly open up a lot of iron ore projects are now looking a lot more economic than they were previously. So if that continues, we may well turn off our sights on Melville Bay. Limerick, we just renewed the license till May 2022. And that was a long process, but we got there in the end. And the Limerick Basin is full of very big zinc, high-grade zinc projects. There's some really big operators in there, like Glencore, Vedanta, and others. And our ground has been with Alba for many, many years, actually. But it's only ever been drilled, I think, 7 or 8 holes in total now, or 5 or 6 or 7, I forget. We've only drilled a couple of holes in my time. There remains a number of really interesting targets there. But what we've done with Limerick is we've gone back in now that it's been renewed, and we've engaged the services of some consultants who really know the area incredibly well and have had successes there in the past with other mining companies, and they are analysing all the data that we've got and all the data that's available, the geophysical data, reinterpreting all that, and we'll be coming up with some much more narrowly defined drill targets. Certainly we hope that will be the case from this exercise. So watch this space on Limerick. I think certainly we definitely want to be drilling one or more prospects at that project this year if we can.
That's great. Thanks for giving us an update on those 2 projects. Now, just in terms of the Horse Hill project, what do you think of the operator UK Oil Investments plans for future drilling here?
Yeah, well, I didn't have the chance to talk about Horse Hill, so there's a limit to how much we can cover. But you might have seen the announcement that we put out recently, which obviously UCOG led with, which is their plan to drill further wells at Horse Hill, and they've done some really good work by the looks of it at looking at that northeast corner of the license and finding some nice drill targets there. So, look, we're supportive of that because, they did have a bit of a reverse, let's be honest, with Horse Hill well number 2, the horizontal. That obviously has run into technical difficulties. It was it's again a risk-reward thing. It was a big prize, but it had obviously technical challenges, and those have unfortunately come to pass. But that doesn't change the fundamentals of that project. The oil is still there; it hasn't gone anywhere, right? There are several. There's 12 million or 11 or 12 million tons of oil in place at the Portland. We know that that's there, and that it can be tapped from, and would need to be tapped from, several wells, vertical wells, which are far less technically challenging, and you can tap it, as I say, at different places within the field and get that production of, whatever it might be, 150 barrels a day from each well, whatever it might be. And that can make economic sense with oil prices, again, having strengthened recently. So we are generally supportive. I mean, it makes perfect sense to go back in and drill one or two more holes. It would definitely be nice to also, and I'm sure that, and I think they're planning this also, is drill one Portland producer, but also drill one Kimmeridge producer. Kimmeridge remains the really big target. Again, that's part of the sort of technical challenge of the field, but it is a very big prize, and it would be remiss of any operator not to continue to work on to tapping that reservoir, the Kimmeridge. So, all in all, I think it makes sense what they're planning to do, and we obviously hope as a big investor in Horse Hill that it comes good.
That's great. Thanks, George. And just to round off, quite a nice final question to end on. Of course, there are many mining stocks for investors to choose from. So can you tell us why Alba specifically?
Sounds like a Justin question. Well, yes, there are many mining stocks, and obviously I cannot provide a recommendation. However, it would be remiss of me not to point out some unique features about Alba. We are the only AIM stock that I can think of that has got the entire gold belt, or an entire gold belt in the United Kingdom under license to itself. That's us with the Dolgellau gold belt. And, it's 30 kilometers of a known geological gold belt in our backyard. And the potential there, and we haven't even talked about the exploration potential over the rest of the gold field. We've only talked about Clogeye. We've not even talked about Gwynfinish, the second largest producer of gold in history in the United Kingdom. That's under license to Alba. We've got 10 targets for virgin gold targets over the Dolgellau gold belt, and we've only covered, 9 kilometers of strike. We've still got 20-something kilometers still to explore. The potential in the gold belt is massive. Yes, people have in the past put down, mums and dads and their sons have gone and done, trial mining and put shafts down and this and that. No one has done the work that we're doing. No one has done it in a concerted fashion. Perhaps the only people that can compete are the British Geological Survey in the 1970s. They're the only people who went in and they did the original mapping that we rely upon to this day. They did a lot of very, very important work, but we're the next people to come in and do proper modern exploration, concerted, systematic over this gold belt. So if you can find me another company that's got that in their armory, then let me know, because I might put a few quid into that one as well. But, that's a unique story. We're trying to reinvigorate 2 gold mines in our backyard in the United Kingdom. I'm not going to go there for Brexit, but it is something to be proud of. We think there are serious prospects for getting those mines back into operation, and we think there are serious prospects for finding new deposits in the goldfield in North Wales. And I haven't even touched on Greenland. We've got that in our armory as well. We've got a very high-grade ilmenite deposit, and we've got an extremely high-grade graphite deposit, the highest average grades of any graphite deposit in the world. So if you can find me a mix like that at our share price and our market cap, be my guest. But I think we're well set, and we've got some really strong projects. We cannot forecast, how it's all going to go, but we know we've got a lot of strength in our portfolio, and we've got really high prospects, really good prospects for at least one of those becoming a mine in the next few years.
Amazing. Well, that sounds like a great note to end on. Thanks so much for joining me, George, and I'm sure we'll speak very soon.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks for everyone for watching.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone.